When I first crack open a game and I pull out the rulebook, sometimes if there's a lot of like story or lore or flavor text, I don't always read it. However, this one I did happen to read it, and it says it's the year glork-too-vleep, or 1983, according to Earth time. We recently stumbled across a planet called Earth and discovered intelligent, albeit primitive, life. The most intelligent and valuable of these specimens are the creatures known as cows, which is hilarious. And it actually corresponds to a rule in the game. You're collecting human meeples, but the cows are wild, therefore more valuable than the human meeples themselves. Like, I just love the theme of this game. SILOS is a set collecting / kind of area control game for 2 to 4 players. Players take the roles as aliens and they will be trying to collect 5 complete sets of humans. And the 4 different types of humans are government operations, public influencers, politicians, and professionals. Or as I like to call them, purple, green, fleshy colored, and white. But once a player has one of each of those, they must turn them in and they will gain a societal power emblem. And the first player to collect 5 or 4 of them in the short game is the winner. Oh, but as mentioned previously, the cows are a little more intelligent and valuable than people, and they are wild, so they will fill in the gaps of any missing color meeple that you may need. Players will take turns going clockwise around the table. During a player's turn, they can have 2 movement points. And a movement point is defined by moving one of their meeples to an adjacent space. And they get 2 of those movement points. So they can move 1 meeple twice or 2 meeples once. Or they could just decide not to move any meeples altogether. But you will find yourself needing to move your people around, and sometimes you'll find yourself really wishing that you had more than 2 movement points. But once the player has completed their movement, they then must activate 1 card. Each player will receive their own hand of identical 3 cards. Well, they're not exactly identical. They have different art on them, which I appreciate the attention to detail there. However, they all have the same gameplay effect. And those cards can only be used once per game. So actually, most of the time, you will just be top decking a communal deck of cards. And that's what I love about this game so much. When you're first taught the game, you almost feel like, okay, that's it? Where's the game? But soon the game will reveal its strategies to you and you'll be like, okay, I get it now. I see the mistakes I made. Now I'm losing. But anyways, back to gameplay. When you draw one of those cards from the top of the deck, there are 3 different scenarios that could happen. One of the most common scenarios is the UFO advancement. And you guessed it, you just advance the UFO clockwise around the map. So in this case, the UFO would go over here to the church, and then the player that has majority there at the church will receive a cow. And remember, the cows are awesome because they are essentially wild and can take place of any color meeple that you may need to get a full set to collect a point. I should have took another breath before I finished that sentence. And then whoever has the second most meeples there will receive the human meeple that has randomly been placed on that spot. And then once the players take those, you refill them with a cow and then another random meeple from this lovely little bag. It's actually not little, it is lovely. And I love the design on the bag, it's just great. So that is one way that you'll be getting your human meeples. Another event that can take place is a marked specimen card, basically adding meeples from the bag to these different locations. And this matters because when one of these locations is full of 3 meeples, there is what the game calls a mind control event. Basically, whoever has the most meeples there, or the most power, I guess I should say that, and not necessarily meeples, more on that in just a moment. Whoever has the most power at the location will draw 2 of the meeples, and then whoever has the next most power will get the leftover meeple. So this is a way to kind of influence the board state. This card says each player must draw 1 meeple and you add it to one of the matching colored spaces on the board. You may notice that all the spaces have a slash, like 2 different colors that can go there, and the fleshy color is at all of the locations. However, these 2 locations are the only place that green meeples can go, these 2 locations are the only place that white meeples can go, and these 2 locations are the only places that purple meeples will go. So it kind of forces the player to move move from space to space. So not only are you maybe concerned about the next space that the UFO could go to abduct humans and or cows, you're also kind of concerned about the color meeples that you have or the color meeples that you don't have. But to fulfill that card, going around the table, starting with the active player, they will randomly draw a meeple from the bag, and then they must put it on a matching colored space. So if I was the yellow player, maybe this would be a good place to set that green meeple because I have the most power there and I'm trying to get that location to bust, so to speak, to create a mind control event so that way I can get some of those meeples. And I don't know if the game was designed to be this way, but sometimes during this phase or this action is when I've seen players at the table kind of negotiate, be like, well, I'll put this guy here in hopes that maybe you draw another green or a tan, so that way, I mean, I understand you're gonna get 2 meeples, but I really just want a tan one so I can get another power emblem. I'm kind of losing this game and really need the meeples. And the third type of event that can occur is the most spicy of them all. That is known as the power events. And with this particular card here, going around the table, each player may activate one of the regions that they have the most power on and activate that space's special power. And some of these are freaking sweet. And that's kind of a third reason why you may want to control or have more power at one location than another. So yes, you have the mind control events of trying to have majority there to get those meeples. Yeah, maybe you want to be ahead of the UFO so that way you can get meeples and or cows that way, but equally, maybe more importantly, is controlling an area so you can activate its ability. So let's take a quick glance at some of the abilities. I would like to pause for just a moment and mention that this was a review copy provided to me from the publisher. However, the thoughts and opinions in this video are my own. Please leave a comment down below. And if you find any value or entertainment in my videos, thank you so much for watching and consider clicking that subscribe button. Leave a comment. And Harley Dog looks forward to seeing you again. Town Hall here allows you to adjust these markers. These markers here act as a tiebreaker should players have a tied amount of power at a location. The sheriff's office, essentially you're arresting someone. It allows you to choose one location and move all of the meeples of one color from that location to the sheriff's office. Activating the university allows you to take all your meeples there and move them to the town hall. That allows you to put one of these rubber graduation caps on top of your meeple, and all of your meeples will then go from the university to town hall. But that is super cool because an educated alien meeple is worth 2 power instead of the normal 1. And actually, while we're talking about powers of alien meeples, you may have noticed that some of them have cowboy hats. These dudes are worth 1.5 power. So normal meeple, 1 power, cowboy hat, 1.5 power. Edumacated bro with a graduation cap is worth 2 power. And the shopping mall allows a player to draw meeples randomly from the bag and put them on a matching colored space until they cause a mind control event. So that's one way to hopefully pump a bunch of meeples into a location that you control, so that way you can trigger a mind control event to get 2 of those meeples. And then there's the news station. News station gives you 2 options. The first option is you can turn in just 3 meeples to get a power emblem, which is pretty cool because that saves you a meeple. The second option is if you can't do that or don't choose to, which I can't see why you wouldn't want to, is you could randomly draw a meeple from a bag. And over here is the church. The church is cool. It lets you steal a meeple from another player or take 1 human meeple from any other location. And last and certainly not least is the bus station. Bus station just allows you to rearrange all your dudes. You can just put them wherever you want. But not there. I mean, there is a card that just goes in numerical order and activates every single location, which is pretty wild. And you may have noticed that there's these little spots around the outside of the board. It's super cool because when you draw those cards, you can put those cards at their respective locations around the map. So that way you can kind of deduce during your turn, well, it's a 50-50 shot that there's going to be a UFO advancement or a marked specimen card. So that way you can kind of plan accordingly a little bit. But it still kind of has like a fun push your luck feel to it. But the 3 cards that you start off with are basically just variations of those things I went over, and you keep playing until somebody gets 5 points. Or you can play a shorter game and play until someone gets 4 points. And I actually think I prefer the 4-point option on this. And that is Silos in a nutshell. Holy cow, I love the theme of this game. That pun was not intentional. The theme is so cool and the production is just absolutely amazing. The meeples look amazing. They're screen printed on two sides, and I love the attention to detail that each one of them is like a different sculpt and has a different human figure on one side, and then on the opposite side it has like aliens, like they're stacked up inside a human skin suit or something like that. The little rubber graduation caps and the little rubber cowboy hats that fit on there, super cool. And even the regular human meeples and the little cow meeples, those are really nice as well. The bag is a nice sized bag to house all the different meeples in, so when you're shuffling around in there and randomly pulling them out, there's no question you will be able to comfortably get your hand inside there. The art on everything is really great. I love this style of art, and it has just a really cool aesthetic to the whole game overall. And back to those meeples, like that spaceship meeple might be one of my favorite pieces ever of any game of all time. It's so cool. The cards are great quality. They shuffle fairly well, I guess. There's only like 12 cards anyways. And the player specific cards that they get, they all have different art on them as well. So it's just a nice touch that they went the extra mile to pay for the extra art for all those different cards. But enough of the production on this game, because it's just tremendous. And actually a lot of Bitewing games, the production is very, very top notch. Let's talk about the gameplay. I really like this design style where kind of like a classic Knizia feel, where someone teaches you the rules and you're kind of like, okay, that was pretty easy. Where's the game in this? Like, so you're saying most of the time I get 2 movement points, that's it, and then I'm just gonna be top decking this communal deck with the rest of the table? Like, that doesn't seem like much of a game there. However, once you start playing and once some of those cards come up, like moving the UFO, you're like, oh, well, maybe I should have focused on getting into that spot, which seems obvious, and it kind of is. However, though, what if the other cards come up that activate the different specific spots? Or the power cards that come up that activate the different regions that you can control. So some of those region specific powers are very powerful, much more powerful than just getting a cow for having the most power at the next location that the UFO goes to. So maybe you want to focus on controlling some of those areas. But then there's like the third layer of the onion of strategy in this game. Maybe the next spot that the UFO will travel to doesn't have the color meeple that you need. Maybe you already have tons of green meeples. You don't need any more green meeples. So then maybe you need to focus on getting a white meeple. So maybe you start migrating your dudes down there to get white meeples in case a mind control event comes up. Because then you can draw a meeple out there. Hopefully you get a white one or a fleshy colored one, because remember, the fleshy colored ones can go to any region, which really help you pop off some of those spots that you might have majority on to get the meeples that you need. Obviously, I really, really enjoy this game. There are some things though that I feel should be discussed when talking about the greatness of this game. I do think if you are not a fan of negative player interaction, you may want to try this one before you buy it. Only because it seems like there's a lot of it in there. However, it's not really just like one player directly affecting you just to be mean. It seems like you are constantly in other people's way and they're just kind of like, well, sorry, I need to control this spot. Like, that's what I need to do to try to win. This isn't a co-op game. So if that kind of area control, player interaction doesn't jive with you, you may want to try this one first. And I did feel that sometimes the game felt a hair long, especially with 4 players. If you were playing the 5-point game, in a 4-player game, I would suggest playing to 4 points. I just felt like the game felt just a hair longer than it should have. Like most games, I do think that the 3-player is kind of the sweet spot for this game. 4 players was also very enjoyable. However, like I said, it did feel a touch long and it was a little more difficult to control some of the areas. But again, the other 3 players at the table with you are having the same problem. So and rarely you could maybe have a moment of maybe a little bit of analysis paralysis. However, you are top decking and you can look and see what cards have been played and kind of play the odds on what card you think might come up next. Or remember, you have your own 3 cards that are available to you only So maybe you do want to use that one card that activates all the areas that you have the most power in. But you look and see, and well, there's a 1 in 3 chance that the power card will come up from the top of the deck. So you think, well, maybe I will save my personal card for a rainy day, so to speak. But it is super satisfying though when you do have one of those really big turns, like maybe the communal card comes up that activates all the regions and you just happen to have the most power at 2 or 3 of them and you're just like, man, just slaying. Feels really good. Overall, the teach in this game is quite easy. The rulebook is nice and clear. And after you taught the game a couple of times, it does seem overwhelming at first when you are trying to learn and memorize the 7 different locations. However, if you think about them thematically, they all kind of thematically make sense. And each player has a player aid as well, so they give you 4 player aids. And speaking of the different locations, it does come with a variable set of location abilities that you can put on top of the ones that are printed on the board, so you can get a little more variety in gameplay that way. But overall, really enjoyed this game. Gonna give this one a 4 out of 5. Really, the amazing production and great theme really elevate this one for me. I've had a lot of fun playing this, and we've actually had some games that some negotiation has happened. And I don't know if the game was really designed to have negotiation in it. It doesn't really mention that in the rulebook, so just thought I'd throw that in there. But overall, definitely look into this one. That is SILOS by Bitewing Games. Now it's time to grab a dog.